Hey guys, it's Lindsay here with Little Helpful Files. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time, and if you're coming back, thank you so much for joining. We do cash stuffing, mini savings, budgeting, life in general, all through the glory and by the grace of God. I am so excited to get into today's video. So there's been a few requests to show how to laminate these cash trackers into envelopes. I do have everything in the Etsy shop as digital downloads, and I wish I had the time that I could create more items to laminate and ship out, but I am a stay-at-home mom and I homeschool my children, and I just don't have the time right now with my kids being younger to do so much of the physical products. So my hope is that in doing this, you will be able to then laminate and create those cash envelopes with all of the digital downloads that you get in my shop. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip this around so that we can go through and you can see how to get these created. This will be for the A6 size. Now you could do the same thing with the A7 and create an envelope as well, using the same type of technique and tips that I give you. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So this is how the savings trackers or sinking funds print out. I do like to use Cardstock. I'll go through the supplies that I use, but essentially I'm showing you this because this is what I cut around. So the border is there as a guide for you guys to be able to cut out the trackers. And each of the sheets usually come with your tracker and then the back card design. And then I do like to include a cash teller slip on the ones that I can. So I use the Pen and Gear bright white cardstock. It's 110 pound. That is my favorite. It's just worked really well in terms of being a sturdier, thicker cardstock without being too big. I've just found that it has been the best option. And once you have this all cut out and ready to go, I'm going to show you how you're going to assemble these together to get them ready for laminating. All right, so now you're going to want to put them so that the blank sides facing each one. And so what you're doing here is basically creating what's going to be the envelope part. So you want to make sure that you have that design facing the correct way, that it's not upside down. And then I use the 5 milliliter laminating sheets. I use the Scotch brand, and I will say, I definitely like the 5 milliliter or 5 ml, however you say it, better because it's thicker. Again, I want these to last, and so I'm all about making sure that they're going to be sturdy enough. Sometimes with the 3 ml, they're just really flimsy and they don't do as well with the thick cardstock either. So I highly recommend using the thicker laminating sheets. Now, of course, with that, you need to make sure that your laminator is able to withstand the 5 ml, so definitely check on that. And it is also important to invest in a good laminator as well. I've tried to get some of the more inexpensive laminators, and I just don't feel like they do as well of a job. And they also don't last as long. I feel like they you burn through them a lot quicker. So what I'm doing here is just lining everything up, making sure that the top tracker is lined up perfectly with the back card design, and getting this ready for the laminator. And also, when you're laying it out in the laminating sheet, you want to make sure that you give room underneath the envelope to be able to hole punch. So if you notice, that's why I put them in the way that I did. You want to give about 2 inches or so below, so that way you can hole punch the envelopes. The top of them eventually are going to get cut pretty much close to the tracker so that the envelope will open. However, like I said, the bottom portion of it, if you want it to be able to be hole punched, you do want to make sure you give yourself enough room afterwards. Now, you'll see here in a minute that light is going to turn blue. So you want to make sure that you wait until that is ready. It takes about 4 to 5 minutes for mine. You just want it to be hot enough. And then I also made sure it was on the 5 ml. So that way it was at the right temperature for the thickness of the laminating sheet that I have. All right, so now carefully you're going to want to stick that in the laminating. You want the end of the laminating sheet that is already sealed to be facing down. So that's what's going to be going in. Otherwise, it can definitely mess up in your machine. And you just want to make sure you line it up the best that you can. Now, it does take some time. So as you can see, this is real time. it is going to take a little bit of time to actually go through. It is, heating it and pressing it together. So don't pull it or rush it right now. What I'm doing is just guiding it to make sure that it's coming out straight. It was over to the one side just a little bit, but you'll see in a minute it ends up coming out just fine. And I do like to put it through the laminator a few times because I like to just make sure, especially with the thicker cardstock and the thicker laminating sheet, I like to make sure that it's really sealing it well. So I am going to go ahead and feed this through again, and I will speed this up. So essentially I will do this maybe 2 or 3 times with the full sheet, and then I actually cut them so that they are in the 3 different envelopes. I do not make it into the envelope yet because my recommendation is to laminate, and then leave the last cutting of the envelope till the end. Because the problem is if you cut it and try to make your envelope and then you decide that you need to run it through the laminator again, it actually can reseal that envelope at the top, and you don't want that to happen. So as you can see here, I'm just going to feed them back through the laminator. Again, I just like to do this a couple different times. And a lot of the time I will even cut the sides and the bottom, and I will wait and see if I need to run it through the laminator again before cutting the top. So right now with my paper cutter, this one happens to work best for my laminator, so I have a different one that I use for cardstock, but I am pretty much using that tracker as my guide. Now, on the sides and the bottom, you will see there's almost like a little bubble. I hope you guys can see this. I'm trying to show you there. There's a little bit of a line. So you do not want to cut into that. If you cut into that, it is going to break the seal. If you do that, you can try running it through the laminator again and you may be able to reseal it. However, if you cut too close into it, it is not going to hold up well, and that envelope's not going to last very long. So just be really mindful of that. So as you can see now with the top, I am going to go right up against it so I can cut. And if you get within the bubble on the top portion, it is going to open. So now you've got the envelope portion at the top that you can enter and put your money into. So I'm just going to follow the same steps with each of these to create the envelopes. And this is why, again, it's just nice to be able to kind of see where that little bubble is, but again, using the tracker border itself as your guide. And then I do line up the bottom of the tracker at that, I don't know how to explain it, but a point on my cutter where the plastic ends. So it ends up being like the perfect amount of space for me to leave for hole punching. And again, if you want to measure that out, I just happen to know like where I need to line it up on my cutter, so that way I know where to cut. But you can also measure it. I want to say it's probably about 1.5 inches, maybe 1.25 inches, that I leave at the bottom, because again, you want to be able to hole punch this. And right now what I'm doing is trimming up an area that was still sealed. So basically when you are doing this, you just want to be careful not to pull it open if it is laminated. Sometimes you will need to cut it down a little bit more so that the envelope will actually open. And I am just measuring here, again, cutting that down so that they are all going to be the same size. Whatever size you choose to go with, just make sure it's consistent, and then that way you'll have the same size envelopes. Right now, I am cutting the top of this because I forgot to cut it. So if you don't cut the top portion into that bubble that's on the top, you won't have an envelope. So you want to cut into that so that way the top of it will actually open for you to be able to then hold your money in, like your cash. That's where it's going to go at that, in the top slip. So now we're going to switch gears. I'm going to bring out my hole puncher. This is a hole puncher that I got on Amazon, and it has a couple different options. So you actually just slide those into the different white lines, which, has different measurements. So I have been leaving mine on the A6 size, which ends up being about 2 inches in those 2 center hole punches. So the 3 on the one side, 3 on the bottom, 2 inches in the center. I found most of my A6 binders measure that way. Some of them are 1.5 inches, so just be sure to check that before you start hole punching. Sometimes you might want to just take a piece of paper and double check that the hole punching is going to match up. And then I center it in the hole puncher so that way all of my envelopes end up the same and the hole punch is at the same place on each of them. Now, as you can see, I have 3 finished envelopes. We are going to go ahead and switch over, and I'm going to show you how these look in the wallet that I have. But I do want to just show you again here the edging and the bubble area, which I did not cut into. I do like to leave a little bit extra space. It will allow your envelope to hold up longer. So we are going to switch gears. These envelopes are ready to go. They are finished. I'm going to get my Moterm wallet out so that you guys can see what they look like. But I hope that this video has been helpful for you. I hope that this gave you enough tips and step-by-step help to be able to do this at home. Like I said, my items are all digital downloads. I do occasionally offer a couple print and ship options for the month, but for the most part, it is really challenging for me to do the physical ship items. So I love being able to have this video now to share with you guys so that you can create your own beautiful envelopes at home. As always, I thank you guys for being here, for watching, and I pray that you keep on saving and keep on praying. Seek the Lord in all that you do. God bless you guys.